All right, guys, this eclipse does pack a little punch because it is conjunct Lilith and Mercury, squaring Mars. It's going to be very important for you to slow down, be present, and be very disciplined and self-responsible with your own behavior, your own actions, and your own communication around this time. There could be some shadow work that's coming up to the surface for us to bring our attention to. Old thoughts, old thinking, old communication, old emotional behavior, old emotional patterns, subconscious patterns that have been suppressed, possibly from past trauma, past hurts, past wounds, things that are old that we've outgrown that are ready to come up to the surface and release in some way. This could be a time where you might feel kind of snappy, kind of moody, possibly passive aggressive, possibly sensitive around challenges in your life, around obstacles in your life, around relationship conflict, something that is of a personal nature that is challenging you on a mental level, challenging your thinking, challenging your beliefs, challenging the way you communicate, something that needs to be kind of brought up to the surface so that it can be released in a graceful way, in a conscious way, so that you can transcend these patterns, so that you can heal these patterns, let them go, transcend them, and come into deeper intimacy with yourself, with others, deeper union with yourself and others, more of a spiritual enlightenment in the way we work through conflict, our own personal conflict and our conflict in our relationships, and bringing that into a transformative space to both be diplomatic in our relationships, diplomatic, rational, fair, and balanced in our relationships, as well as sensitive to our emotional needs, sensitive to our hearts, sensitive to things we care about, embracing, our desire for deep intimacy, deep bonds, breaking through into a new way of handling conflict and communication and thinking and processing in our relationships. Can we do all of that and still embrace our differences and still show up authentically? This is what's challenging about the new moon. And this can influence you on a personal level in many different areas of your life. But when we all go through this together on a collective level, we change potentials on the planet, potentials around conflict and war. All of those potentials can shift and change when we all collectively come in, deal with some of our dark stuff, and allow a beautiful transformation and transcendence that allows us to break through into a new way of building and creating together. Hey guys, welcome to Realization Hub. My name is Michelle, and I'm an intuitive counselor, energy healer, channeler, and astrologer who loves to teach sensitive and awakened souls how to be in command of their energy, develop their intuition, and navigate their spiritual transformation with ease and empowerment. Today's video is an energy update for the solar eclipse in Libra happening on October 2nd. In today's video, I'm going to be going over the astrological transits as well as any intuitive wisdom that wants to come through at this time. If you enjoy these videos, please like this video and subscribe to my channel. It really helps me out a lot. Let's go ahead and get started. All right, so this new moon solar eclipse in Libra on the South Node is happening on October 2nd at 11:49 a.m. Pacific time. The new moon is going to be happening in Libra at the 10th degree, and it's going to be conjunct the South Node in Libra, and that's what makes it an eclipse. The South Node is in Libra, the North Node is in Aries, and whenever we have an eclipse, it's because the moon cycle is falling in alignment with the North or the South Node. Now, the South Node has to do with our past and our history and our karma and our wisdom. And currently, the South Node is in Libra. And so Whenever we have an eclipse on the south node, what we're dealing with is kind of fated and destined energetics related to that south node in Libra. At this time, we could be drawing on our wisdom around these Libra energetics, which has to do with balance and harmony and fairness and justice and relationships and our, ability to be fair and balanced in relationships. We could be drawing on wisdom from that south node. We could also be releasing old relationship patterns, old values, old ways in which we relate to justice, fairness, balance, harmony, old ways that we've outgrown, old ways that are outdated, old ways that inhibit us in some way, and helping us to release that, have a release, let it go, because it's old and we need to move towards something new. What's interesting about this new moon in Libra, this new moon solar eclipse in Libra, is that it is conjuncting with Mercury. Mercury is all about our mind, our intellect, our learning, our communication, and Mercury is going to be in Libra at the 11th degree. It's also going to be conjunct Lilith. Lilith is going to be at the 10th degree. Now, Lilith is kind of like this dark goddess energy. And by dark goddess, I don't mean evil. I mean our ability, this energy of Lilith, is that archetype within us, that part of us within us, in our feminine energy, that knows how to go into the depths of our energy, the depths of our being, and find hidden, wounded, suppressed, limited parts of us and bring them up to the surface to be seen and to be released. Now, in particular, Lilith has this story, I guess this energetic story to her that I would like to share, but it kind of starts off with the energy of trying to please. Lilith in Libra is, trying to please the other person, trying to create balance and harmony, trying to fit in a box of some kind, trying to fit in, please, be accepted, be loved, be approved of. And in that process of trying to please and fit in and charm and, be balanced and create harmony in a relationship, the energy starts to get distorted in some way or imbalanced in some way, where we start to somehow lose ourselves, suppress ourselves, take on projections outside of ourselves, become misunderstood, and suppress ourselves on some way, suppress our individuality in some way in regards to our values, our money, our relationships, our beauty and harmony and pleasures, to the point where at some point that energy gets intense. That suppression gets intense to the point where it can snap and it can explode and it can act out in very subconscious, unintegrated kind of ways, in angry ways, for example, in extreme ways. And then we have the opportunity, if we evolve, with that energy, we have the opportunity to, just get clarity about where we have suppressed ourselves in a relationship, where we have created some kind of power imbalances in a relationship, where there might be darkness or wounds in a relationship that need to come up to the surface to be kind of healed, transmuted, taken to a higher state, taken to a higher transcendence of some kind. Hey guys, I want to point out that I offer online group sessions every single month based on the current energies. And this month we'll be doing a journey with the goddess Lilith, working through our inner conflicts. If you need more support with the energies this month, go ahead and find more information in the description box below. This could be highlighting this general energy of where we might be holding on to beliefs, thinking, things related to our mind, things related to learning, things related to communication, things related to our mental processing, our ability to understand our communication that have been possibly suppressed in our relationships, where we've maybe not shown up as authentically as we've wanted to. And that being something initiated around this to release, something initiated to, release, let go of, or draw on our wisdom from, around this Libra like energy. Despite, our best intentions to want to bring balance and harmony in relationships, one of the questions we can ask, where has our individuality been kind of compromised or lost in the process of trying to create balance and harmony? An eclipse is a great time to slow down and be present with what's happening within you. And I guess when it comes to Lilith being conjunct this new moon solar eclipse, you really want to be aware of your psychology, to be honest. Like, this is a time where your inner psychology could go into some places that feel, wounded, that feel resistant, that feel dark, that feel limited, that feel suppressed, that feel misunderstood, that feel, possibly outcasted or rejected, and there might be thoughts, churning on an emotional level or on a mental level, or even like in our egos, around this time, where it could be easier to snap. It could be easier to project. It could be easier to kind of allow those wounds to kind of act out, react around us. And so this is a good time to observe. It's a great time to observe and, kind of be present with yourself and recognize that, this is the stuff that's coming up to the surface to release. And you just allow that to happen. So it could be mental. Libra is ruled by Venus. And so we want to look at, where Venus is at this time and what is going on with Venus. Having Venus in Scorpio, first of all, Scorpio is an energy that's very deep and very intimate and very complex. And it can be very intense and extreme. And, it seeks, like a strong, intimate bond with a partnership, with relationships. It wants that deep intimacy. It's also highly intuitive, highly perceptive. It can see through lies and manipulation and can really, see the truth. And it also kind of has this dynamic of evolving, going through cycles of death and rebirth and evolving and transcending as you evolve, and, dealing with some of those darker, more primal sides of ourselves and bringing them into heightened states, transmuting them, going through a metamorphosis of some kind to bring it into a higher state of expression. And so this is kind of what's going on with our relationships around this time, or our values, or, our money possibly, or, what brings us pleasure. The interesting thing here with Venus and Scorpio is that it's going to be conjuncting Poseidon. To have Venus and Poseidon conjunct like that in Scorpio, I think this speaks to the nature of this eclipse. It's an opportunity, a growth opportunity to really take something, deep inside of us that might be traumatized, that might be wounded, especially in our relationships or with our values, our money, or our pleasures in life, and to, go through an experience of, letting it out, letting it go, and, bringing it into an enlightened state, transcending it in some way. Because when we look at the new moon, there's kind of this square going on with Mars. Mars has to do with our will, our action, our ability to move through obstacles. It can create conflicts. It is a malefic planet, and so it can, create separation and conflicts, and but it can also be passionate. It can also be where we put our energy, where we have motivation, how we move forward, and where we're focusing our energy, and directing our energies. So Mars is going to be in Cancer at the 15th degree. Now, Mars in Cancer is in its detriment, which means it doesn't function well in the sign of Cancer. Cancer is a very nurturing sign. It deeply cares about its personal connections and what is close to their heart. Cancer can be very indirect, kind of like a crab. It's ruled by the crab, and so the crab can walk sideways and approach things in a very kind of zigzag, sideways kind of way. And the crab has a shell, so it can be protective, it can be guarded. And so Cancer tend to be natural guardians, natural protectors. But underneath that shell, they're very vulnerable. They're very sensitive. Things could get moody with kind of moody with Mars and Cancer. Things can get a little bit passive aggressive. Things can get kind of indirect. We might be approaching our challenges and our actions and our obstacles, and struggling with how to do that more directly, and also in a way where we're trying to I guess handle our emotional side as we take action, as we move through challenges. It's going to be kind of in a closer square with Mercury. This is where our actions and our thoughts, our thinking and our thoughts and our communication might be having is going to be having kind of like a challenge with our actions. So our actions and our thoughts, our conflicts and our communication. This is kind of where the growth period is. And so this could very well be a challenge between how we work through conflicts or challenges or obstacles related to our intuition, related to our emotions, related to something that is personal to us, that we care about, our sensitivities, how we work with our minds on an intellectual, how we remain diplomatic, how we remain balanced and keep the harmony. This new moon has a grand trine. It's got a beautiful support to it as well. There's a trine happening between Mars in Cancer, Venus in Scorpio, and Saturn in Pisces. So it's like this emotional, intuitive trine, which means it's a very supportive flow of energy around our actions, our relationships, and our discipline and our responsibilities, and the work we put into things, and what we need to learn. And so this is a very supportive energy for our relationships around showing up, taking the action that we need to take, taking self-responsibility, putting in the work, putting in the discipline, being present, attending to our sensitivities, being vulnerable about, our heart's desires, being vulnerable about, what is bothering us, what conflicts are bothering us, what challenges are in our way, what obstacles are in our way, being vulnerable about that, being sensitive to that, as well as being willing to want to go deeper, want to investigate, want to heal trauma, want to heal psychologically, And so this could be where we're addressing things in the past. We're addressing old, like conflict management, or old relationship traumas, or old suppressed things relating to conflict and communication, and doing the work, learning the lessons, putting in the effort, taking steps, making goals to help us kind of progress forward and transcend, in the way we bring balance and harmony to our relationships. We also have Neptune in a sextile to Uranus. Neptune is also in a sextile to Pluto, and Pluto is trining Uranus. And so Neptune in Pisces is, a very spiritual, creative energy. It's bringing things to union. It's bringing things to transcendence. It brings things to, beautiful spiritual states of expression. It can also bring about confusion and disorientation and delusions and things like that. But when we see a sextile with Neptune, that is an opportunity. It's a supportive opportunity to, probably address our differences and boundaries, address our differences in our values, with Uranus and Taurus here. Recognizing where we're different from each other, recognizing where we have different values, different boundaries, the way we might want to build something, in a different way, the way we manage our balance and our harmony and our joy in our lives differently. This is addressing, an opportunity to be more inventive and innovative around what makes us different. Allowing a breakthrough around what makes us different, tapping into our higher mind around what makes us different, kind of dissolving, those things that we're attached to that are, that we're stubborn about. Like Taurus can be stubborn, and Uranus and Taurus, Taurus doesn't necessarily like change, but Uranus brings change. And when we have a sextile to Uranus from Neptune, it's, it could be dissolving things like old masks in our relationships, like where you're showing up in an old mask that maybe came from childhood, or an old mask that came from an old job, or an old mask that came from a different time. And, we could be dissolving like an old mask or an old way of showing up in a relationship, letting that be a supportive way of, bringing things to a higher state of transcendence. And Neptune in sextile to Pluto is, like a spiritual transformation, where we're definitely, releasing things, old karmic things. Pluto is going to be at the 29th degree, and so that's a very critical degree. Pluto wrapping up a very long cycle in Capricorn. It's a karmic ending, and so there's an opportunity to, dissolve old karmic, structures, old karmic systems, in our relationships, old ways of working through conflict, old systems of working through conflict, old systems of communication in our relationship, old structures of communication in our relationship, and, allowing those to dissolve and release and let go of them, and ultimately allowing this transformation into the higher mind. Where can we bring in a brilliant perspective, an innovative, a unique perspective, a unique way of processing and thinking in our relationships that allows us to be different, have different values, have different boundaries, but, still build something together, still, serve, still come together to, serve humanity in some way, or serve yourself in some way. The North Node, it's going to be in Aries. And so whenever whenever you're working with the south node, you're also working with the north node. And whenever you're working with the north node, you're working with the south node too, because they're in opposition to each other. So it's kind of like like a pendulum or like a scale. They have, those two energies have to be balanced. And so whatever we're tapping into in the south node has to do with our individual self. The north node in Aries, it has to do with us as individuals, and what we might be suppressing that's keeping us from going in the direction that we need to go in as an individual, or what's important to us as an individual, or what makes us unique or different in a relationship as an individual, instead of just kind of blending in and pleasing and just people pleasing for the sake of balance and harmony. All right, so we also have Jupiter in Gemini, and it's going to be in sextile to Chiron at this time, which gives us an opportunity for likely a communication, healing, an expansion around our communication, our minds, our thinking, our processing, and healing our wounds. It gives us this opportunity on an individual level to look at the way we're communicating, to look at the way we're mentally processing, our willingness to learn about someone else, our willingness to understand the dichotomies and the contradictory nature, of our own self and other people. It's an opportunity to look at the dualistic nature of our wounds, of our needs on an individual level, and really have the opportunity to draw on some healing wisdom to help us have this kind of spiritual transformation around kind of coming into a new way of working through conflict. Now, Jupiter is going to be opposing Persephone. It's also going to be squaring Vesta in Virgo. Vesta in Virgo, let's talk about that. Vesta in Virgo is like a sacred energy. It's like a sacred spiritual energy around our inner flame, our inner passion. And it's going to be in Virgo. And so that is, Virgo is an energy that's oriented around service to other people, purifying, healing, embodying, organizing, paying attention to the details. And so some of this growth that we might be going through on a mental level might be where we're, too idealistic, too perfectionistic, too critical, being really focused on the details, or the need to focus on the details, the need to get organized around the details of the way we think and communicate, paying attention to the details possibly, the need to purify our mind, the need to purify our communication, the need to heal that. Squaring Persephone. Persephone is going to be opposing Jupiter, in Gemini. Persephone is going to be in Sagittarius. And so we might have tendencies on some level to be more righteous about our beliefs, to kind of always, insist on some kind of ultimate truth, or that there's only one truth, regarding, what's right, or what we believe in, our philosophy, or, we could even be naive, and overly optimistic, in our thinking. And where can we start to, kind of mature in our thinking, be curious, be both curious and open to learning about someone else and how they really want help and service, versus what we may think is correct or right based on our own belief systems or philosophy, or what we think is right in some way. Maybe there's a type of maturing going on at this time, a mental maturing, a communication maturing, a type of purification, like a sacred kind of spiritual purification around our communication and thinking around this time. So intuitively, just looking at the energy of this eclipse happening on like a collective level, what we're looking at is some shadow work happening at this time. We're definitely dealing with things that have been hidden and unseen to us within ourselves, mentally, emotionally, in our egos, things like that. And really taking a look at maybe the past, some of the trauma that we've had in our relationships and our values and our with money, with what brings us pleasure and joy in our lives. Taking a look at our relationships, the past hurts, the past pains, the past traumas, taking a look at that in a deeper way, looking for the hidden patterns in our communication, the way we process our emotions, the way we show up in our relationships, and the way we work through conflict, the way we work through obstacles, the way we navigate challenges, where we're having challenges and we need to go through a big kind of update around that. We need to take it into some growth. We need to mature. We need to transcend. We need to bring it to a higher state. And so this reminds me of, being able to develop more of an intimate and deep bond with each other by being more mature, by being more diplomatic, by being more sensitive to our emotional needs, by being more aware of our psychology and our traumas, by being willing to be self-responsible, to commit, to show up, to do the work, to have some discipline with our boundaries, and to be compassionate and healing as well, to be empathetic as well. And this is kind of the balance between being intellectual and being, more heart-based. Where can we do both? Where can we both be rational and intellectual and diplomatic? And where can we also be connected, and vulnerable and sensitive and open, and work through conflict in that way? And this is kind of what I'm seeing happening on a personal level, especially, I think our relationships are highlighted with this being in Libra, but it doesn't necessarily mean it involves our relationships. But it likely could be like some relationship patterns that we're dealing with. So this is kind of what we're reworking on a very individual, personal level. And again, you're going to want to look at the house that is ruled by Libra in your chart, and that will show you more about the context of what you're releasing, or what has been suppressed, or where your individual nature has been kind of suppressed in the effort of bringing balance and harmony to something in a certain context of your life. And that's kind of the area that we'll be focusing on this kind of healing. When you think about what's happening on a grand scale, like on a global level, when we each individually go through a transformation, it becomes this ripple effect, and it affects, these global potentials. And right now, there's actually a lot of potentials that are brewing on a global scale around war, around conflict, around civil war, revolutions, global wars, like World War III. Like, there's a lot of these potentials looming around war. And this is a new moon solar eclipse that can likely shift a lot of these potentials around war. This is where, when we do the work on an individual level, Pluto is going to be moving into Aquarius for the next 20 years. And so this is highlighting the power of the people, the power of humanity. And when we're all going through a transformation together on an individual level, that changes the potentials on the planet and the way things turn out. And so when we're all kind of reworking on an internal level in our subconscious, or kind of, in the depths of ourselves, when we're all reworking that way that we work through conflict and communication and our obstacles and challenges, and we're bringing that into a transcended state, we're coming into more union in our relationship space. What that looks like on the global scale is, we're changing the potentials of conflict on a global scale. We're changing the potentials, potentially changing, how things play out in regards to big conflicts happening on a global scale, like wars. So this could change the trajectory of global wars, or wars happening on a global scale, in more of a healing, positive direction, something that shifts things, long term, as long as we're committed and we embody these new behaviors, that it can really change things for the better long term. Now, I want to circle back to more of this eclipse energy on a personal level and on an intuitive level. And I want to go back to, the time when this series of eclipse kind of started in Libra, which was around October 2023. And so, if you've been like following the energetics of these eclipses, there was a lot of purging going on related to our relationships, our relationship dynamics that we've outgrown, that are no longer serving us. And so what that kind of looked like over the last year was a lot of relationships purging, a lot of people ending relationships going in separate directions, a lot of purging of friends, family, partners, romance, you name it, death, there was a big release of relationships. And on a soul level, that's because we were all coming into a new kind of individual purpose on the planet. And so, when something like that happens, when you birth a new identity, and this is the North Node in Aries, when we're birthing a new identity, we're developing our individual self, the changes that happen on an individual level, the healing that takes place on an individual level impacts our relationships. And all of our relationships either have to change with us, grow with us, come with us, or we leave them behind, and we move on in some way, or that relationship dynamic has to be reorganized in some way. And so that's been kind of the theme of a lot of these Libra eclipses, of having to release relationships, having to kind of edit these relationships and update these relationships, and kind of, let go of the people that are not coming with us, and, grow with the people that are coming with us. And this is kind of one of those, eclipses where it feels like, okay, now we're addressing our relationships that are here to create with us. We have relationships that we have right now, long-term relationships that are going to be in our lives for a long time. And those relationships are here to create something with us, our experience, our soul's experience, serve us in our purpose in this next phase of experience on the earth here. And this is an eclipse that kind of is like taking a ball of yarn, which is like a raw, piece of fabric, and unraveling it for the sake of creating something new with it. You have to unravel the yarn in order to use it to create a tapestry, and so this eclipse has that kind of emotional, spiritual kind of element to it, of allowing things to unravel and unfold in a raw way, being very sensitive and soft about that, so that we can really take that raw form that's coming undone in our relationships and use it to create something beautiful, use it to create something, to create a new experience, or to create something that we want, something that we desire, something that brings beauty or harmony to us, especially on a soul level, especially in our life purpose, especially in our experiences with our relationships on more of a soul level. And, this is where we're having to do that dark integration work or that shadow work, and look at our shadow sides in those relationships and recognize that when we have people that are going to be co-creating with us, that there are going to be obstacles and conflicts along our path in which we have to face those together. And how are we going to do that in a more enlightened way, in a way that is more soft, gentle, sensitive, as well as diplomatic and rational and balanced and harmonious, that allows us to come into deeper bonds, deeper intimacy with each other, and also respects our differences and our authenticity, where we don't lose ourselves as individuals in the process. Again, some of the most challenging things about this eclipse has to do with how we take action, how we address emotional conflicts, how we communicate and think and process, and bringing that all together. And it's really about the details. Some of this stuff is about the details. It's kind of like if you're going on a long journey with someone. Let's say you're going on a 100-mile hike in the desert. So it's a long journey, and you're walking with someone through the desert, and they hit their toe like on a rock, and they like slice their toe. It's one of those moments where you want to be able to pause and address the toe. Like, it's just a small cut. It's going to be okay. It's not going to stop the whole journey. But can you pause and address the toe? Take a small little break to say, ouch, that hurt. Do you need anything? How can we mend this so that we can keep walking together? And this is kind of what's showing up in our relationships, is we need to be able to address those small things that bother us, that hurt in our relationships, even if they're small. We need to take a look at that and be sensitive to that, because it can be very healing to address that, because it can be kind of like the tip of the iceberg that goes deeper into old traumas and old psychological subconscious patterns that we need to attend to in our relationships so that we can move forward. So it's important, even if it's a small thing, a small hurt, a small jab, a small passive aggressive comment, where we're able to slow down, and pause and bring our presence to a relationship and, ask, are you okay? Do you need anything? Let me learn about what's bothering you. Let me learn about, what you need so that we can attend to this. And also, how can I be sensitive to that, but also diplomatic and advocate for myself as well as an authentic individual in this experience with you? And then how can we get that all mended so that we can keep moving forward together? And so this is kind of, the growth period happening on a personal level in relationships. It could, again, Venus, Libra is all about balance and harmony and justice and, the legal system and fairness and equality. And, it's an intellectual sign and it's a social sign. And, so this could be expressed in a lot of different ways, but I'm just talking about relationships because it's kind of like the archetype of Libra. It's kind of like a very strong energy of Libra. It's very relationship oriented. And so I'm just talking about relationships because it's the easiest way to apply that information. So if you take anything with you around this eclipse, I would recommend that you observe any of those dark thoughts, dark thinking, those tendencies to want to snap and rage and take impulsive emotional action, and instead practice discipline, instead practice self-responsibility, instead practice slowing things down, being patient, and being present, so that you can really learn about your needs, other people's needs, be sensitive to that, be receptive to that, also be rational and diplomatic about that, and allow yourself to come into deeper states of healing, deeper states of union, and deeper states of intimacy with yourself and others. All right, guys, thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Hit the notification bell so that you can be updated whenever I post a new video. I offer new moon and full moon videos every single month.